If the season ended right now, Raphinha would be in pole position to win the Balon d'Or.
Raphinha's leadership in that moment was absolutely crucial, with Brazil holding on to their advantage. He recognized the unnecessary risk Vinicius was taking, deliberately delaying his exit and provoking the Colombian players.
Thanks to help from a very unlikely source. Vinicius Junior doesn't realize it, but right now he's become a driving force in helping Raphinha win the Balon d'Or this year. The big question is, how? How is Vinny helping Raphinha win the Ballon d'Or? Does he know about it? And what's the crazy plot twist to all of this that shows everything is calculated then? It starts with moments like this. Allah! The 20th of March. Vinicius Junior finally gets a big moment with Brazil, scores the winner versus Colombia with an insane goal, but just minutes later, he was at it again. Initially, when this video started making the rounds, it seemed like Raphinha had issues with Vinny because no one knew the context. Over time, the reason became clear. Raphinha was helping Vinny. Vinicius was already in danger of a possible suspension, one yellow card away, and Raphinha knew what Vinny was doing by delaying to get off the pitch, time wasting, and could have gotten him a suspension and made him miss the match versus Argentina. To many, Raphinha had saved his teammate, but in the context of this video, Vinny had given Raphinha a helping hand, a major boost. PR, as we've seen for years now. This, the PR. France football officially terms this under the sportsmanship category, when getting to choose the winner as criteria, but we'd call it PR because that's what it is. What Vinny had done right there was boost Raphinha's PR. Unfortunately, that's just how football works. When you've got two players like this, who at the time, the start of the season that is, were two of the most informed players in the world, the PR automatically becomes positive for one and negative for the other. It's not that hard to guess which way this has gone.
Raphinha must be right up there now.
Yes, he is up there because of what he's doing in the Champions League. He's on 11 goals in the Champions League. Mo Salah is a great contender for it. Kane. Raphinha is on a lot of goals with only one penalty. And I'm not saying that Kane shouldn't be having penalty and Mo Salah is having a season in the Premier League that we will never see again. I'm saying if a guy has virtually the same amount of goals than you guys scored without penalties, that is outstanding. Because what Raphinha is doing on top of defending pressure, because when people talk about being complete, as a striker, you need to know how to put pressure also. It's a lot of things that you need to do, and Raphinha has it all.
Raphinha, good PR. Vinicius Junior, bad PR. See how it works now? It's been shaping up as the season has continued. This has been the case with Vinicius Junior for years now. The constant notion that he needs to grow up. He needs to drop the childish attitude of always replying to critics or every taunt, every action on the field. There's no questioning his talent, but that's an area of his game that's been a serious problem for years now. That's an area of Raphinha's game that looks like he's reached.
When you have a national team, you need a leader that is consistent, to your point, that is ballin', but also to represents the identity of a nation through their footballing characteristics and their ability to pull them through adverse moments. No better player right now for Brazil than Raphinha.
You hear this and it's the truth. I mean, it's easy to forget that in the same game versus Colombia, the same one Vinicius scored that special winner, Raphinha more than played his part too. He scored the opener from the penalty spot, and before anyone says Vinicius Junior won the penalty, which he rightfully did, it was Raphinha's pass that set him up in that position to win the penalty first off.
Again, it's a wonderful ball forward from the Brazilians, who want something from our referee.
The narrative keeps up building nicely. See guys, it's again what the PR is. Raphinha scores an important penalty for Brazil, less than 21 days after Vinicius Junior misses one for Real Madrid. It builds a narrative. A few might disagree, but it's what football feeds on. When you've got two superstars from the same country in one team, or two superstars in the same league, one has to be the good guy and the other one the bad one. Take examples of Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. The PR situation had Ronaldo as the bad guy for years. This isn't to agree that Ronaldo was indeed a bad guy in reality, but it's just to paint the picture of how strong PR is and how it works. In the same light, Messi became the good guy. We're seeing it with Vinicius Junior and Raphinha now.
The time to say, yes, I am the best player in the world and I have fought hard for it. They have tried and tried to invalidate me, to diminish me, but they are not ready. No one is going to tell me who I should fight for, how I should behave. I won for myself, my family, the people who accompany me every day in my routine, those who admire me, the best player in the world.
From stuff like this, us against their mentality, making it look like he's in a battle against the organisation, it's nicely put Raphinha in a position where all he has to do is remain calm-headed, and he's on the other side. The PR is crazy, but it's not the only way Vinicius Junior has been helping Raphinha this season. And this other one, he's taken a front row seat to witness it firsthand. In terms of actual performances this season, Raphinha has been miles clear. When he made this tweet, I don't know if you realised, but Vinicius Junior was dropping some pretty heavy receipts. This was right after he'd finished second in the race for the Balon D'or, an award many people believed he'd be the favourite to win, but ended up losing to Man City's Rodri. Saying he'd do it 10 times more this season. We're getting into April now, and Vinicius Junior so far has 29 goal contributions in 39 games. This in itself sounds decent enough, but when you break the numbers down, there are a few lapses. For example, he's got 9 goal contributions in 10 Champions League games this season. Now that sounds more than decent, it looks good. But when you realise out of those 9, he got a hat-trick versus Dortmund on matchday 3 in October and 2 against RB Salzburg in December. The truth is, he's got more yellow cards in his last 3 Champions League games with 1 than he has goal contributions. That's 0. Or La Liga is another example. 17 goal contributions in 22 games for a winger is impressive. But 11 of those contributions came in the first 10 weeks of the season, mid-October. And the reality then is that since his hat-trick versus Osasuna at the start of November, Vinicius Junior has just 3 goal contributions in 16 games, the same amount of yellow cards and suspensions he's had in that number of games too. Yikes. You should get the idea by now. Vinicius Junior promised 10 times better than what he was from the previous season, but so far, it hasn't been it from the Brazilian. If there's anyone who has delivered 10 times more in terms of his performances this season, it's the other guy. Him. Raphinha's 2024-25 season has been breathtaking to say the least. As of recording this, he's got 47 goal contributions in 42 matches for Barcelona this season. That's already double the tally he had from the 2023-24 season with 23. And there's still a lot left to play for with Barcelona between now and the end of the season. It's not just the numbers with Raphinha, it's been the performances too and how they've come. This was the early indicator, a hat-trick against Bayern Munich in a 4-1 win. The same Bayern team Barcelona had struggled to beat since 2015, over 9 years now, and he stars in that. When the two did meet just days later in El Clasico in La Liga, where Vinny had a below-par performance, Raphinha was on the score sheet as Barcelona thumped Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. Got a goal in the 4-0 win. In the Champions League, Raphinha has been on another level. This clutch goal to seal a 5-4 win against Benfica in the league phase, and in the knockouts at the same venue, he was at it again. But hang on a bit, if you're seeing this now and still haven't subscribed to Football Historia, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Raphinha scored the winner. It's not just been in the Champions League too. In La Liga, where Raphinha isn't scoring, which has been a surprise to many considering the levels he was at last season, he's assisting.
But people forget this guy is also a creative machine. He's got 5 assists in his last 6 matches coming to the international break, so he's on form in terms of creativity. He's the one pulling the strings from a central position, and with Neymar operating in that number 10 position, talking to people associated with Brazil on the ground there, they're saying that fans in Brazil, they're looking to him not just to be the difference maker, but to be that prototypical number 10. He's played it for Barcelona. In that match against Atleti, Hansi Flick brought him into that number 10 position, and it was the parting of the Red Seas.
You could make the argument that he was the key to that Barcelona comeback against Atletico Madrid away from home, despite getting just an assist in the game. In La Liga, he's bagged against the likes of Valencia, Sevilla, and Villarreal. A hat-trick versus Real Valladolid early in the season. Barcelona has already lifted a trophy this season, the Spanish Super Cup. The team they faced in the final? Real Madrid. and El Clasico out in Saudi Arabia, a different continent but the same outcome. Vinicius Junior with another underwhelming performance, while Raphinha put on a show. He scored twice, 2 beautiful goals I should add, and got the assist for Alejandro Balde's goal as Barcelona led it all out on Real Madrid. They won 5-2, but for the red card they received early in the second half, there's every reason to believe that beatdown could have been even more. Whatever the competition, when these two have faced off, Raphinha has been better. The performances show it too, and the best part about Raphinha is that he's adding a lot more to this team than just goal contributions.
Absolutely, and I have a fantastic team, and also the players are unbelievable. But at the end, like Raphinha, I never had a player like this because he's unbelievable, dynamic against the ball, but also with the ball. His speed is really, really fantastic, but at the end is this kind of player. I think every team needs it, and we have it, and we are really happy.
The fact that Hansi Flick still says this, Raphinha is a pressing monster. He brings more to the team than just goals, and the ability to keep running and force the opposition into mistakes, that's a big addition to his game we're seeing now. The PR, the performances, where Vinicius Junior has dipped in both, Raphinha has stepped up. But does he know about this then? Between the two at least, there doesn't seem to be any form of rivalry. Even when they've faced each other multiple times in different competitions this season, no confrontations between the two. It's been a healthy relationship. Vinicius Junior even posted this himself about Raphinha after the Brazilian supported him during a difficult period. Vini had suffered racist abuse against Valencia in the 2023-24 season.
Ahí lo vemos, en zona mixta sí la ha mostrado con ese mensaje que está sacado de un discurso del que fuera emperador de Etiopía, de Haile Selassie, en las Naciones Unidas.
And after he spoke out about it, Raphinha displayed this message to show he was by his side. Touching. What a guy. But what if I told you, almost all of this seems calculated? Why? Because there's a crazy plot twist that reveals an endgame. We're back to the PR again, and focusing on this because in football, it plays a really important part, especially when it comes to awards. So far, we've identified Raphinha as the good guy in the two, but what if he's just like Vinny? It might sound crazy, but this season alone, we've seen him cross lines he really shouldn't have. Let's take the game versus Argentina for example. Raphinha was the subject of abuse from the home crowd. They were taunting him and giving a minute of silence for his real lack of involvement in the game. But this wasn't unprovoked, they didn't just do this. It all came after what Raphinha said days back. He made a statement saying he was confident Brazil would go to Argentina and win, and that he'd even score in the process. I don't know if he was saying this to hype up his teammates to get the Brazil support believing they could get a win against their fierce rivals, but coming out the way he did, it was very unnecessary. He'd provoked a war and got hit with the consequences at full time. Now my point is, if Vinicius Junior does something like this, it gets blown full scale. When Vini did this versus Atletico Madrid, the reaction?
I would suggest it's a little classless that you carry on and carry on and carry on and rub it in people's faces. I don't think that shows any class whatsoever. As I said, the reaction...
It was termed as classless, and the general idea was that his trash-talking of his opponents was very unnecessary. But it's the same way Raphinha was trash-talking the Argentines. He said Brazil would beat them on and off the pitch, and ended his statement with a cuss word. You don't see that much criticism of Raphinha about this. Instead, everyone's just taking this as an Argentina got revenge versus Brazil thing, and that's it. Or this is another case scenario. When Vini does this, get into a fight because of his teammate.
Raphinha en estos momentos ha demostrado ser un capitán del equipo sin brazalete. Ha defendido a capa y espada a Lamine Yamal.
He's seen as the bad guy, but when Raphinha does this, he's a hero.
Creo que podría muy bien haber entendido la situación, pero prefirieron insultarme también. Y bueno, yo soy una persona que no llevo nada para casa.
Or this, after the crazy Benfica game. Raphinha's words in that interview were if anyone does anything, he gives it back at that moment. The reason we brought this up is to again show how PR works. It's not to paint Raphinha as a saint, it's just the unfortunate reality that one person has to be the good guy and the other the bad one. The season is coming to the business end now. As of recording this, it's 10 games left to play in La Liga. Both Vinicius Junior and Raphinha are actively fighting on all three fronts for both Real Madrid and Barcelona this season. Ultimately, it could come down to that, but even if it does, you don't fancy Vinicius Junior. Here's the thing. If Barcelona manages to pull off a treble this season, winning all three trophies we listed above, then Raphinha becomes the heavy favourite for the Balon d'Or later on in the year. There's no question about it. If Real Madrid, on the other hand, wins the treble, which in itself will be historic for the club, Vinicius Junior still won't be the favourite from the club for the Ballon d'Or. You'd place a player like Kylian Mbappe over him for what he's done for the club this season. In all of this, it's worth noting that there's no international football this season, and many believe it was the international competitions from last year that decided the Ballon d'Or. Vinicius Junior had a subpar Copa America tournament with Brazil, getting knocked out in the quarterfinals, whereas Rodri was the player of the tournament as Spain won the Euros. We're not going to revisit that debate, but the essence of bringing this up is to show that this season, the awards will likely be mostly based on what a player manages to achieve at club level. That's the verdict with Raphinha this season. He's, right now, in the eyes of many, the best footballer on the planet. I mean, yeah, sure, the Ballon d'Or race is still open. Guys like Ousmane Dembele from PSG have entered the conversation after the crazy season he's had, particularly since the turn of the year. Or players like Mohamed Salah, Mbappe, as we've mentioned, Harry Kane, these guys. But if we pause to look at each one, there's a drawback. Dembele, for example, only really got into the conversation thanks to what he's been doing majorly this year, adding goals to his game in 2025. But the season started in August, and we're talking about a guy who midway through the season had a rift with the manager and got dropped for a game. Mohamed Salah? He would have been the odds-on favourite, but in the space of days before the international break, Salah, along with Liverpool, have been knocked out of 2 competitions. Out of the Champions League by PSG, and over 2 legs, he had 0 impact. And they lost the Carabao Cup final to Newcastle, where in the game, he had 0 impact as well. Nothing. Come to Harry Kane? Well, ultimately he plays in a position where if he doesn't win trophies to back up the insane amount of goals he's scoring, he could have eyes on the Gerd Müller trophy and that's it. Kylian Mbappe? He's back now, but with Mbappe midway through the start of the season, there was already talk about him being a flop. What we've done is assess the potential options for the Ballon d'Or. I mean, right now it could still change, but these are the guys who are heavily in the conversation for the main award. And with each one, while you can pick a flaw or a drawback, with Raphinha you can't. Vinicius Junior isn't even in the picture anymore. Just going back to Mbappe early in the season, and it seems because of the comeback he's had now, a lot of people have forgotten just how bad he was at the time. Click the next video to find out just how bad Kylian Mbappe was actually.